Welcome to Happy Times and Places, a positively inclined Doctor Who episode commentary podcast. The wheeze is very simple. I get a friend of mine to choose a Doctor Who story and secretly nominate their favourite things about it. I have to watch and guess what those favourite things are.
Hello, Toby, and listeners to Toby's podcast, of which I am one. I genuinely love this podcast. I think it's exactly the sort of thing we all need right now. One man trying to find something nice to say about any episode of Doctor Who. Toby, I salute you. My name is Ben. Like Toby, I'm a writer for Doctor Who magazine. I've been writing for DWM for over half of its life, for over half of mine as well. And in that time, I've interviewed literally hundreds, possibly into the thousands, of members of the cast and crew of Goodnight Sweetheart, of Doctor Who. I've also co-written a couple of books with Russell T Davies, the Writer's Tale books, still available from all good bookshops. And I occasionally edit Doctor Who trailers for the BBC. Now, about a year ago, I edited one for the Season 26 Blu-ray box set, which gave me an opportunity to go back and, as if I needed an excuse, to go back and rewatch Season 26, which for my money is the best, or certainly my favourite classic season of Doctor Who. I love it to bits, even the stuff that other people don't seem to like as much. The much maligned Battlefield, I think, is brilliant. I know you covered it on this podcast recently. I don't have much time for people who complain that Ghostlight is too complicated. It's not too complicated. Just pay attention. But the serial that I've chosen for you to watch is Survival. Partly because every time I watch Survival, I find something new to love about it. Also because I think it's a little unfairly overlooked or maybe overshadowed by Fenric, which is also obviously brilliant. But Survival just it doesn't make many people's top 10 lists, and it's definitely on mine. It's so good. I love Survival for so many reasons. Pretty much anything you guess will be one of my favourite things about Survival. I know everyone says this on your podcast, but I really did struggle to whittle it down to just 4. I have, for the purpose of this parlour game, so as not to break your podcast, I have whittled it down. So go watch part 1. I envy you, Toby, getting to watch part 1. I could do that. I might watch along with you, actually. And I will meet you back here in about 25 minutes.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm quite excited by this one. What a lovely intro from Ben, who, if you can't see on video, is looking he's very sexy anyway, but he's also looking very swish with his microphone with a gubbins on it. He's professional, you see. I'm very grateful to Ben for taking part because, he's famous. He's not famous for being a Doctor Who fan. That would be a ridiculous thing to be, and there's no such thing, I think, as status within Doctor Who fandom, and anyone who seeks such a thing is a fool. But Ben is a YouTuber of note and repute aside from his Doctor Who stuff. So, I've never really been grew up as sort of part of organised fandom. I was always a little askance at it because, what's the thing Groucho Marx said about not trusting any club that would have me as a member. So much self-loathing. I didn't want to be surrounded by anybody that reminded me of me. But when Doctor Who came back and became popular again, lots of young, hip, cool people liked it. So people like Ben could very much, look at old guys like me and be, move over, Grandad. The new kids are in town. So I'm very grateful that he's contributed to this. He's a very nice fellow. He's been very helpful whenever over the years. I think I've only met him a couple of times. Very nice chap. But as I say, everyone's sort of in, social media these days. So anyway, I'm surprised and delighted that he's taken part. He took part a while ago, as you heard there. He said, it's what we need right now. I think he recorded that at the height of the pandemic that hopefully we're coming out of. But the world the world has chosen to instead make us all sad and worried about something else as I record this. So there's always the need to have a bit of positivity in our lives and a bit of Doctor Who. And I tried to combine the two in this podcast. And Ben has chosen the very last, oh my goodness, the very last Doctor Who story to be broadcast as part of its initial run on the BBC. It wasn't the end, and I hadn't prepared for the moment. So let's see if it reawakens some memories. And if I can choose some of the same things as somebody young and cool, or whether we'll have entirely different experiences of this. So I have it fired up on BritBox. I also have it on Blu-ray and on DVD, but this is easier than unplugging wires and things like that. But however you choose to consume it, or actually not watch along at all, just listen to me rambling, which is very, very... I was going to say laudable. It's not laudable. It's lunatic. But anyway, on a count of three, I'm going to start watching Survival in 3, 2, 1, go. If I press the right... Yes, I have pressed the right. It just took ages. So you're probably halfway through. You're with the bad rocks now. Okay, Alexa, volume 5. Oh, yes. Volume reduction live as we speak. It's glorious watching this on quite a big screen. It is a long old title sequence, but it's very effective. I remember when this title sequence first hit my screens in 1989, thinking, wow, apart from the rocks, which aren't good, and I'm not a great fan of the wink. Yeah, I'm not a great... or the logo. But other than that, what did the Romans do with the Doctor Who title? But it's a great title sequence. The TARDIS in the bubble is marvelous. Now, this is Damon Jeffrey, who I mentioned in the commentary for the God Complex just a few days ago as I record this, because I did that very recently. He's an actor and stuntman, and he's not credited on this. He's not credited on the God Complex. However, he straddles old Who and new Who, and he was in a production of Emlyn Williams' Someone Waiting, a professional production, around the time I was doing an amateur one as a schoolboy, and my friend went to see the professional one and got me a programme, and it said Damon Jeffries just done Doctor Who, so I always kept an eye out for him, and he actually gets it, and I think, did he say oh my god then? You have to be very careful of that sort of blasphemy. That is an absolutely superb, and isn't it, he actually doesn't get a credit, But Kathleen Bidmead playing his mum does, and all she gets only sort of one line and miles away. And I always have to be careful with Catherine Bidmead, because I always think, oh, old racist, but that's because she's Mike Smith's mum in Remembrance of the Daleks, in which she is not credited, even though she has a couple of lines in that. So the demarcation is very interesting. Well, no, it's interesting only to people like me. But here she is. She gets a credited role. She had been, I believe, a member of the production team. And now she is just in the back of shot. She's no longer with us, I believe. And it always amuses me, because I think now if Doctor Who's history was being written in the way that it was written in the early 80s, somebody would have gone, and Kathleen Bidmead is Christopher Bidmead's wife. Now, this lady doesn't get credited, and she's got more lines than Catherine Bidmead, and she gets a close-up. I think she's called Muriel something, but she gets no credit. But yes, because I remember there being books called The Doctor Who File, I think that looked really impressive, but were actually sort of filler. And I remember the one for Galaxy 4 saying Stephanie Bidmead, who plays Margot, is the wife of Christopher Bidmead, because Doctor Who scholasticism in those days was to go, do these people have the same surname? It's such a small world, the world of entertainment. They must be married. And yes, John Lee, Aladdin in the Daleks, is also the same John Lee who's a non-speaking extra-Mongol warrior in Marco Polo. No! Anyway, let's not get into those things. That's been bothering me lately, and I've worked it into, because I saw somebody tweet about it in an old tweet. It's incorrect, so I need to address it, but I have to address it in a commentary about Survival. That's I have a brain that doesn't like sitting in incorrectness, which I think is a character defect, if not a mental defect. This is wonderfully directed. People hate this cat. I don't mind the cat. I remember my friends at school thought the cat was a bit naff, but at least they go to the effect of making it look a bit matted. It's not too clean. I think that those kids playing, which shot at the ground level, at the cat level, through the grass and through the cat eyes, is very effective. Alan Waring, I'd loved his direction of Greatest Show in the Galaxy, a show I was not looking particularly forward to because it sounded quite naff in the build-up. I enjoyed Greatest Show, and just going, oh no, this guy really knows how to direct. And I think of the 80s directors, post Harper, he's the pick, really. I think he does Emmerdale now. In fact, I auditioned for him once and I didn't get the part. Was it for the Royal Today? But anyway, he's forgiven. He's not the only person that's not cast me. I quite like the posters for cats and all of this sort of thing. I remember this time, this I don't know, it felt a bit ordinary, this story, because it was set in the present day. I don't know why it felt ordinary, and I think it's anything but. I think it's got the great running theme of survival. It's called Survival. It's Doctor Who's last story, and of course the bridge between this and Rose and Julian Holloway. This is great. Julian Holloway is a silky voiced, brilliant voiceover man. Did loads of advert voiceovers in the 80s. Absolutely rolling in it because people got paid properly in those days. Lives in the States now. But he didn't normally play Scottish hard men. But these were the days where you'd cast an actor who's a good actor, who's a bit of a chameleon, and they could then do what they wanted with the part. And because he's a sort of, he's a known actor in the business, but not a famous guest star as much for the final Doctor Who story. He was supposed to be cast in I think it was in the Ken Campbell part in the Fawlty Towers wedding anniversary episode, and then couldn't do it when the dates got changed, and it was a good break for Ken Campbell. So if Ken Campbell had been cast as the Doctor, the Seventh Doctor, that might have been those two universes combining. I think there's a really sort of brooding atmosphere, and of course I don't know why I thought this felt low key, especially as it's sort of bringing Ace back to where she's from, and I think it's quite. I know it's done in a sort of Saturday tea time way, but the attempt to sort of discuss, errant youth, and it's the filter on the camera is great, and having Ainley in the shadow purring away. He was always quite feline, Ainley. I think he does purr a lot of his lines. So him being half cat, I think is an apt development. But it doesn't cost. Yeah, and Patterson, embodies the survival of the fittest thing. But he is a bit of an arse in many ways. But he's also entirely consistent within his own worldview, and he's doing a thing. He's trying to toughen up kids in his way. It's still the sort of cultural arguments we're having now about whether as a culture, whether indulging is the wrong word, but being empathic towards the vulnerability of young people is actually good for them, or whether Patterson's approach is better, and it's I think the one finger can be a deadly weapon. I think there was a riposte that Ace said in the original script that was quite rightly excised, but it feels. I have to say, as I say, I think I enjoy this much more now than I did at the time, where it seemed. I think following Fenric, which had been just so amazing, and feel like the sort of Doctor Who story I knew and loved as a kid, even though I'd never seen those stories. This I think is exactly what Doctor Who should have been doing at this time, and if it had continued to sort of embrace this urban milieu, you know, and try and wrestle with. I know the metaphor here is fairly arch in places, but I'm it's a program that's got to be followed and by and provoke the thoughts of younger viewers, and I think that's fine. Hale and Pace, I remember, this was a sort of thing of going, absolutely furious, they're sending up Doctor Who, although I always liked Hale and Pace, and their management characters, their bouncers when they were on Saturday Night Live, we absolutely loved, but then they soon became a byword for bad comedy. I'm sure Lee Hurst once described them as the only comedy duo with two straight men, but seeing as what's happened to Lee Hurst these days, I think that's be careful, glass houses and all of that. And they've both actually had very good careers on stage as actors and on TV. And they're doing a perfectly good job. I think they were originally supposed to be playing the other one, and they swapped the roles. But we were always on the lookout, or I was always on the lookout to get furious and go, casting Hale and Pace, it's the same as casting dead Ken Dodd and take them again. But actually, you look at this now, and they're two guys doing perfectly good acting jobs. And obviously they're an existing double act, so they've got a rapport. I quite like the fact that they're in it. And I don't know how the cat fits into that shelf, but again, that's great. That's a great shot of how the hell did that cat fit behind? And what? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a scare moment. Money. Haven't you forgotten something? Yeah, see, that's quite funny. Rona Munro, of course, has become a hugely respected playwright and the only person to write for classic Doctor Who and new Doctor Who, and I love that. So this has all sorts of links with. I remember Tiger's cadaver is fairly teddy bear-esque, but Ange the Hunt Saboteur. I love Ange the Hunt Saboteur. I thought you're dead or gone to Birmingham. That is a terrific line, but really well delivered. I know people. I've encountered people like that. You read out of this dump. Her delivery and her tone of voice is absolutely spot on. She's a beautiful one-episode cameo. Kate Eaton. I've never had the pleasure. She's the only member of this cast I've not met, actually. But I think she's still around. So I know Dave John, who plays Derek, said he bumped into her. I think since then she's done an event. But I really like Ange the Hunt Saboteur. I think she's a really well drawn character and a real example of a type of person that I knew. But this is great, isn't it? This kind of all these kids are going missing and people don't sort of notice or people don't care. And although it's shot on videotape and it's in the afternoon, the nods it has to sort of urban discontent and falling through the cracks in society. I think admirable and laudable, and interesting, and a kind of mature. Again, some of the writing of the younger characters and the fact that they're all about 50. No, they're not really, but is a bit kid-friendly telly in the 80s kind of stuff. You'd be a bit more urban and real, and you'd have younger actors probably. But nonetheless, and Dominic Glenn's music really helps. But there's something about, and it's full of litter, and it's actually, because the fact it's shot on videotape means it's sort of grey, even though Wave's good, means it's sort of grey and a bit desolate and a bit Sunday afternoon. And I know it would be great if it was kind of rain lashed and there was newspaper blowing and it was dark and whatever. But actually it's the intrusion into that sort of ordinary real world. And that's not bad, that cat. I don't think that cat's bad at all. I know you do it differently now. And the crane... And that's a good because we saw the shadow go up then over him because it's the cheetah on the horse, isn't it? Basically, but it's done with a bit of shadow and a crane shot, and he really goes over here as well. And poor old whatever was it, the actor's called Sean Oliver, isn't he? But that. TA twist. That was when I sounded like he might have said something else there. She might have said something else there. But this is quite fun. This is actually very doctory, isn't it? The doctor wandering around with a load of cat food. I think that's quite fun. And I quite like the fact we don't question why Ace has got a tin opener on her either. And I really like his dark jacket as well, and the scarf. I could just lose the jumper. Good trousers too. Yeah, it's and good shoes. But yeah, it's doing what Doctor Who did when it came back. You can absolutely see the evolution from this to Rose, even though it's separated by however many years, 16 years. What are you doing? It's quite jolly. So I've got to try and think of what Ben will like about this, and this having this set in the playground, I think is great. It's a really fantastic chase coming up. Alan Waring really knows where to put his camera. He's also good at pacing. He does soap operas now. He largely does Emmerdale, I think. I'd love to have seen him do more sort of sci-fi or more grown-up telly, because I think he's got a real aptitude for this kind of storytelling. But I suppose the shows weren't around, and I love the theme, the chase theme that's about to go up, and that's great. Oh, and that's Lisa Bowerman, who is one of the nicest people in the world. And if you want to meet somebody who thinks and knows too much about British character actors to the extent that I do, but is also a fascinating and interesting woman, then it's Lisa Bowerman. She's like we often message each other at midnight going, do you know of so and so, and she usually does, because she really knows her stuff. And I remember being quite excited that she was in it because she'd been Sandra Mute in Casualty. I think she's the first person. Is she first on the credits in the Radio Times for the first episode of Casualty? But it was just as Mute Lisa Bowerman, so I was expecting to see somebody who couldn't talk. And of course, that was just her character name. And then she was killed. That's John Nathan Turner's dog, Pepsi. His dog quite often appears in Doctor Who. She's in the Curse of Fenric as well in the background when they go to Miss Hardaker's house. But this is really well shot, and I think that's great that they just go, okay, well, it's a children's playground, but let's have a cheetah on a horse, and having it on a black horse, I think that's really beautiful. And this stuff is brilliantly shot, and they're gonna zip off to the planet. I think that's really well done, and it's excellently shot, excellently scored, and what the heck's going on? We're on a dusty savannah, and I think this, I know it's the Doctor Who quarry, but they make it look like a sort of sunburned alien planet, and that paint box effects on the sky is excellent. But this is great. The desolate, the playground. Again, it's evil lurking in every corner. The mysterious, on your the cheetah person on your Lewin Tooting Beck, or at least at the urinals in Perivale. But the music suggests the savannah as well. I think Dominic Glynn is a fantastic. Oh, and there's poor old Damon Jeffrey. What is it? Jim, your dinner's on the table. What's he called? Yeah, and that's a nice little. We remember it's him because he's still got his sponge. But that's but that's nice, and that's pretty grim. These people are being picked to the bone by deadly cats. So what was I talking about? Yes. Yes. Oh, he's the neighbourhood watch. Of course he is. But I quite like that too. One finger can be a deadly weapon. Now, I don't really mind that because it's, it's only a delaying tactic in terms of the plot. I don't like the Doctor doing magic things really, but I kind of that's fine. That's just it's Sylvester McCoy's version of Venusian Aikido. Just I need something to incapacitate a minor irritant just for now. Oh yes, Lisa Bowerman. Very excited to see that she was going to be in Doctor Who. She's a terrific actress. And a poor old him. You think that he might be, he might be going to have some sort of character arc because he starts off as the character that didn't want to finish him, Sarge, in the opening gym scene, and no, he warns Ace and gets killed. That's him. That's the end of him. But now that she's had her tea, she's not interested, and I quite like that. That's quite a realistic aspect to the creature. You go, she's not going to target the hero of the story, as it were. She's going to eat this guy because he's easier to eat. But we will see her again. I actually don't mind the cheetah people costumes. I know that they've been criticised for being too teddy beary, but seeing as they're people in costumes, I actually think they're fine. Maybe they could be a bit more matted, but I think in terms of, how animated they are, the fact you can get a performance out of them, I think they look great on the horse. And when the actors are, doing the body language thing, I think it all looks pretty good. Now then, I know all of these people. To different, except I used to live on the same street as Will Barton. In fact, I spent my last day in my flat in Crouch End. I went over to interview Will for Who's Round, but he lived on my street for the 3 years that I lived there. Oh dear, he doesn't live there now either, and he actually, I think he was doing a Doctor Who convention because we've kept in touch. In fact, I saw him not long ago because he was playing Boris Johnson in a play, and I came to see him and we had tea and it was nice. In fact, I've probably seen more of him since we didn't live on the same street because it took me ages to pluck up the courage to say hello. I saw him in the shop and went, oh, and then I saw him on the bus. And I thought, I know that. Oh, God, it's Midge. So then when he got off the bus at one point, I looked to see where he went. Oh, and we voted next to each other in the election as well one year. And I remember emailing Simon Gurrier and going, I live on the same street as Midge from Survival. But this is great. And well done to that cheetah person because she's just stopped the Doctor saying the word twat, I think. You stupid. Oh, thanks. I won't swear now. I love, and I really like this location. I love the colour of the water at this location. And I think it really serves, and I think the dressing, all these tents and everything, I buy it all. And I love the fact that Julian Holloway tries to do karate. I think that's brilliant. But I do. I think his. I think the rendering of the planet and the color palette, those beiges and greys, and it's the Master. Now we knew it was the Master, but it means that he's been quiet in a tent and being subtle, which Ainley had not always been during this period in the show. So that was episode 1 of Survival. Lisa Bowerman, love Lisa Bowerman. Yeah, no, I've never met Helen Pace, but yeah, everyone on that, Will Barton, Shakuntala Ramani, and David John, all on one side. I've met them all. It's a bit like that with the, and I'm like that with the astronauts from Mission to the Unknown. So there's a few groups of people all under one umbrella who I've met all of. And you know what, my 10-year-old self would have taken that. I wasn't 10 when this was on, but nonetheless, universes away. Ian Dow, who did the lighting, he was a nice man. Oh, yes, Joan Stribling. She's still working. Right, anyway. Nick Somerville. Has anyone ever interviewed him? Stop trying to think about who should be interviewed, Toby. Right, who? Alan Waring. Excellent, excellent director. I will hide the next up because I've got to choose a favourite thing from episode 1 of Survival. And there's lots to like there, including things that a lot of people don't like. I don't mind the animatronic cat. I don't mind is a bit damning with faint praise. I think the cheetah person costumes are fine, are good actually. They're quite attractive, you know. And I like the clothing that they give them. I think it all fits well. Love the image of the cheetah person on the horse. I think that's great. A cheetah on a horse in a playground is actually giving a back kick to a yeti on the loo in Tooting Bec, knocking it off its throne for incongruity. But I think I'm going to choose this now because I think it has to be a choice at some point. I think Alan Waring is a real hero of this period of Doctor Who. I think all of his direction is a cut above what was being done on television at the time, and certainly what was being done on Doctor Who. But I'm going to choose Dominic Glyn's music. I think Dominic Glyn every time kicks it out of the park, really, and I think that chase music is really thrilling. But I think the planetary music is really evocative and really complements the pictures and the design and the color scheme and what it's trying to conjure, that sort of, as I say, that dusty savannah where there are carcasses having the bones picked off them. So I'm going to choose Dominic Glyn's music, although honourable mention to the playground chase as well. But Ben's very young; he'll probably choose something like NFTs or. I'm trying to think of things that young people do. I don't know. Let's find Ben. What does young Ben have to say?
That was part 1 of Survival. Good, isn't it? I was tempted to choose just one line, one of my favourite lines from all of Doctor Who. Oh, hi, Ace.
Oh, hi, Ace. Thought you were dead.
I thought you were dead.
That's what they said. Either you were dead or you'd gone to Birmingham.
Either dead or gone to Birmingham. Love that. But I didn't. I chose as my favourite thing about part 1, and you'll kick yourself, Toby, if you didn't guess this, because it's sort of the title of your podcast, Happy Times and Places. It is the time and place in which Survival is set. It's sort of set in what's tangibly the real world, which I think we forget because of modern Doctor Who doing it all the time, how rare that is for the classic show. And An Earthly Child is set in modern day London, what was then modern day London. Survival returned to modern day London, but in between, the War Machines did it, the TARDIS landing in a lay-by in Logopolis did it, but very few others. There's a real thrill to see the Doctor and Ace wandering around suburbia on a sunny Sunday afternoon, and going to like a corner shop and a youth centre, and in part 3 a council estate. I never watched Doctor Who in the 80s because I was a bit too young. I spent most of that decade sort of crying and shitting myself and missed all of Doctor Who. But the world that the Doctor and Ace are wandering around in part 1 of Survival especially is the 1980s Britain, the 1980s London that I just about remember. The TARDIS lands outside a house that looks much like the house I grew up in, with a sort of like mock Tudor architecture and the bay windows and the car in the drive with the plastic red nose red-nosed day nose on the front, if you look closely. It feels almost impossible to me that the Doctor and Ace would have wandered round streets like that as part of a Doctor Who adventure on the telly. It gives me chills whenever I see it. I love it. A lot of people give you a quick 10-15 second explanation of their favourite thing and then move on. I feel I'm talking too much. Feel free to edit this down. Either way, you're about to watch part 2 of Survival. That's really good as well. Enjoy. I will meet you back here in another 25 minutes.
I'm not going to edit a word of that. And I'm thrilled that Ben has also put a clip in there as well. I mean, he's got a mic with a digital thing on it. He's in HD when this. If you're listening to the podcast, which comes out first, there will be a video eventually. He's in crystal clear quality. But so I'm thrilled at the effort that he's got to. There is absolutely nothing wrong with going into great detail. What I like about this podcast is that every guest reacts in their way, and I hope it's as much a reflection of the different sorts of people we all are as Doctor Who fans, but actually that we then have loads of things in common, but we express those things that we have in common in very different ways. So when people say, oh, how should I do this? Should I listen to it? I say, no, just do. This is the brief. Do react in the way that you want to react. Just be you. And Ben is articulate and passionate and right. I think chose a better thing than me. Oh, I chose the music. But I think I'm doing a little gamesmanship there, because now that I've chosen it, even if he chooses it later, I still get the point for that. But I think, well, one, yeah, the Birmingham line is great, and Ange, and it's odd talking all the way through it. You get to the end, and I didn't think of Ange, and Ange. For there are many episodes where Ange and the line "I thought you were dead" or "Gone to Birmingham" would definitely be a favourite thing, and I do think Ange is definitely worth a salute. Kate Eaton, one of the great one-episode Doctor Who performances, and that line "I thought you were dead or gone to Birmingham" is a thing of great joy. But I think that, yes, that... And of course, Ben didn't mention the Pertwee era, and quite rightly not, because although that is set in either contemporary Earth or the near future, depending on what you think about the unit dating thing, John Pertwee isn't hanging around suburbia. He's not even hanging around, Parliament or government buildings, but he's certainly not hanging around, shops. He's generally in Unit HQ or in industrial complexes or whatever. It's slightly removed from the everyday world. You don't really see the Doctor interacting with sort of everyday people, unless it's some poor sod who's a window cleaner who is going to fall off a ladder, or somebody doing some form of maintenance who's going to get killed. But this, the sort of the urban sprawl, if you like, the fact that, and I wonder why that seemed ordinary to me when I was a kid, because it's not usual. Perhaps it's because I wanted Doctor Who to take me to far-flung places, but actually, I think I'm better now in my sort of my acceptance of the places that Doctor Who takes me, and actually Doctor Who bringing alien menace to the ordinary and the everyday is a key part of its appeal, and in fact very important. I think it was very important when Doctor Who came back, to drag a modern audience with it. So I think it's really, I think Ben's quite right in the thing that he's chosen, and I'm slightly annoyed that I went for something a bit more prosaic, because I think what the modern setting represents is desperately important to the story, to the story's position in the history of Doctor Who, and to actually what happened all those years later when Doctor Who came back. So good choice, Ben, and many, many thanks. So that's the end of episode 1. So thanks very much for listening. Thanks to Ben Cook, an illustrious guest. Very, very. As I say, I'm a bit of a square old geezer, and I've got a young, funky, hip person. I mean, he's saying he was young because he was a baby when Survival was on, whereas I was in my final year of secondary school. Oh dear. Well, my chances of survival are slimmer than Ben's, let's put it like that. But that's time. I hope this has been a happy one, and I'll be in the same place at a different time for episode 2 of Survival. And I hope you will join me and join Ben and listen to what we have to say. But until then, thanks very much, and Speak to you next time. Ta-ta. Thanks very much for listening to this edition of Happy Times and Places, presented as usual by me, Toby Hadoke. My special guest, though, is Benjamin Cook, who is on Twitter at Benjamin_Cook. So follow him there. I'm extremely grateful to him and to the patrons who make these podcasts possible. And they include Ruben Herfindahl, Ian K. McLachlan, Joel Ahrens, the glory-hungry Christopher Meredith, Sam Estirem, Peter Burns, Peter Harness, Ronald Hayden, Rob Leonard, Stephen Moffat, Richard Straw, Nick Tedston, David and David. I still don't know your surnames, guys. I don't know if that's deliberate or not. Jenny at Bluebox 99, Paul Carrington, Paul Cook, Richard Chalk, Peter Crocker, Rob Dawson, John Deere, Chris Dunford-Kelk, Paul Dunn, Jason Gorman, Siobhan Galichon, and Ian Key. The music is by Dave Gates and the artwork by Dylan Patterson. If you would like to join that list of names, please do so by going to www.patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. I don't think I needed to say the www, did I? Do you know what a modem is? But anyway, I've listened to Top of the Pops. I'm a right old stan of the Doctor Who. But you can go to patreon.com to buy me some Hypnus for as little as £3 a month. £3 a month is the lowest tier. Most things are available there, and by things I mean the advance releases that you get, the bonus material, the exclusives, and being very, very far ahead of the hoi polloi. So if you're not a patron, I've just called you the hoi polloi. I'm sorry about that, but if you want to escape such an appellation, it's only £3 a month and a 10% discount for joining up for a year in one go. There are higher tiers with sort of lures to take you through those tiers, but as I say, it's fairly egalitarian. Pretty much everything is available at entry level. That's patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. If you can't commit to a monthly thing, you can do the odd one-off donation at kofi.com/Toby Hadoke. It appalls me that I come to you cap in hand in this way, but it is how things are done for freelance creatives these days. So I hope I don't sound too obsequious and needy and frankly pathetic. But there we go. So is that enough self-flagellation to send you my way? If not, and look, seriously, I totally get that. Times are financially very, very uncertain. So I'm grateful to you simply for listening and downloading or whatever you do. But if you, whatever the kids do these days with their sounds, but if you could go to iTunes or Podbean or wherever you get your podcasts from and leave a 5-star review, a 5-star rating, actually, and a review. Well, there you can have lots of nice words where you describe what it is you like about these. That really does help to set these podcasts aside from the crowd, because there is a crowd of very fine Doctor Who podcasts, but I'd be very sad if this got lost amongst them. But if it muddled along nicely alongside them, I would be very, very happy, and you could do that for me, and it costs you nothing at all. Thank you so much. I'm also a stand-up comedian. You can go to twitch.tv/Excess Malarkey to see what my comedy club is all about. We went online during the pandemic because we hated taking a break from our run of 24 years of putting a comedy on stage every Tuesday night in Manchester. Since we've gone back on stage, we've had acts like Joe Lycett performing for us, and Nish Kumar, all at a very, very affordable. We keep the prices low. But since we've gone back to being live on a Tuesday night, we do the monthly show once a month on the first Sunday of every month on twitch.tv/Excess Malarkey. And there's also an archive there of the sort of things that we got up to with some brilliant comedians like James Acaster and Mark Watson and those Sophie Willan, all sorts of people. That's all up there on our Twitch channel. And we might start doing more stuff there as well. Who knows what the future holds for online entertainment, but we're trying our best to get stuff out there. So do that. Or if you're in the Manchester vicinity, come see us on a Tuesday night and say hello. We even have sweets on the door. you hear the sound go a bit funny about 17 minutes in, that's because I record on a program called Audacity, which is so named because occasionally it has the audacity just to have dropouts for no reason I can possibly fathom. I've tried turning off every other running program, disengaging from the internet, do everything. I've tried, and sometimes I get a completely clean recording, and then occasionally there are just 1 or 2 dropouts that happen, and then sometimes like 17, like a sort of machine gun fire of dropouts all in a row. I have no idea. I recorded Survival all on the same night. Episodes 2 and 3 are completely dropout free. But episode 1, for some reason, when I started talking about Rona Munro, decided to go, not going to record those bits. And it was over the course of about a second, but it means that I just had to drop in the audio from another source, which is why when I record these, I have to have a couple. Well, I record it by a couple of cameras as well for the eventual YouTube release, although they are a chore to put together. But they do have the advantage that they at least back up the sound. So I'm sorry it went a bit strange. As I say, blame Audacity, the audacious dropouts the audacious dropout monger that it is. I hope you're all very well.